And we're back. What's up, everybody? Benja Welldone coming at you live on this beautiful corona-free day. Today is Friday, June the 18th at 8:01 in the morning. How are you doing? So here's the thing. I feel like I'm trapped. And when I mean I truly believe that I feel like everybody is. And here's what I mean, okay? Let me adjust this camera just a little bit. Do you ever feel like you're trapped? You know? And not necessarily in like a physical sense, but I just mean as far as your reality goes. So I'll give you a perfect example. Okay? You got a job, you know, you got certain ambitions, you got things that you want to do, but there's so many things ahead of it that prevent you from doing the things that you want to do. I mean, complete freedom, okay? I believe that in order to have complete freedom, you have to free your thoughts first. And that will allow you to open up to better imaginative ideas. Perfect example. Somebody says, oh my gosh, it was a crazy situation. It was as though I was in a pool of water surrounded by sharks. Now I'm leading up to a point, but here it is. I think the only way to truly understand how you would be thinking if you were surrounded by sharks is to actually be surrounded by sharks in that pool of water. I believe that the first person point of view of the ideas that you come up with are completely different compared to the ideas from a perspective that you do not share. Okay? A detailed example. I told somebody the other day, I said, what would you do with your life if you had $100 million? They said, oh, I'd probably still work. Lies. Okay? Lies. Maybe not on purpose, but it is. And here's the reason why. Going back to what I originally said, I truly believe that if you had $100 million, you would already start to think differently. So unless you have $100 million, it would be a false pretense to believe that you would continue to work with all of that money. You see what I'm saying now? So if you had $100 million, getting close to that reality as possible, thinking about it, what would you do? Now, I feel like that I am, everyone else is really trapped through their circumstances. Unfortunately, a lot of it by money, which takes them off of, if you have higher ambitions, okay, or plans, or, you know, things that you want to do, like drive a crazy, fast, exotic car, or go to Paris and go do all these things. I feel like, myself included, people are generally trapped by their circumstances, but in order to break out of those circumstances, you have to do one of two things. You have to first free your thoughts, okay? And this isn't some self-help stuff, I'm just being honest, okay? Because once you start to think about it, all right, you know how crazy it is to make an itinerary for a trip that you're not even going on? And those initial steps of looking at how much a plane ticket costs, looking at places you would visit, stuff like that, you're already bringing your ideas into the actual reality of the world. Okay? Make an itinerary. Plan a trip to Paris. Not as though, plan a legit trip to Paris. Okay? And now that you've made a plan, you can work on getting there. Now there's a little genius to the craziness of what I'm saying, because it's not too crazy when I start talking about bringing physical elements from your thoughts into your reality. Okay? Now, going back to the whole money thing, I feel like because of money and because of working and stuff like that, especially a job you don't care about or don't want to do, and you got rent to pay and you got whatever else going on, you got to pay for food, you know, there's a weird bridge between the imagination and creating ideas and making cool shit happen, okay, and not even having those ideas, because again, you're kind of trapped by your own reality, your own circumstances. And I feel like the only way to break free from that barrier, if it is a circumstance of certain type of limitations, meaning like money, okay? If it's love, it's talking to a girl, you can accomplish all of that without money, okay? But I mean outside of these things. I mean as far as thinking big, okay? Huge ideas, owning your own business, going on a crazy trip, being on an adventure. You know, you don't ever hear about adventures nowadays. You know why everyone loves films and stuff and watching people do adventurous shit? It's because that's something that they all seek. Perfect example, being in the military was one of the greatest adventures. It was one of the greatest adventures. And I'm a soldier for life, because when I took that oath, I didn't take an oath that I would be protecting this country, foreign and domestic, until my contract with the U.S. military ends. No, it's an oath. That's like saying you're only married until you take your wedding ring off. Then you can cheat, right? Yeah, not exactly. Not at all. Just another example. But my point is this: if it does have to do with some sort of financial limitations, or something that has to do with you physically, it doesn't have to do with the emotions of somebody else. This is you being adventurous, conquering yourself, adding more to yourself. I feel like the first thing you need to do is take control of that whole money situation. And this is what I have decided to do for myself. Now, I mentioned before, okay, that as far as strategizing goes, camera's about to fall. As far as strategizing goes, you need to come up with a plan. When you come up with a plan, you bring that plan into reality. When you bring it into reality, you already started to make it happen. Okay, but you need a plan first. And it has to be something that you build off of. Perfect example, if I look at the top of the staircase and somewhere to say jump to the top, well, that would be quite the thing to see. Somebody jumping up a whole staircase, some 10 stairs. But if you have a goal, which represents the top of the staircase, and you break it up into steps, now all of a sudden you have a plan of your goal is just reaching that first step. And then your next goal is reaching that second step. So this goal of mine that I came up with, if I tell you the end of the goal, it sounds unrealistic. But if I break it down into steps, then you can see it's possible. Perfect example, if somebody said, I want to be a millionaire. There was somebody who said the other day, if you work at a fast food place long enough, if you do different things with your money, if you don't spend it, if you work enough hours at a fast food place, you can be a millionaire. It's very possible. It's not hard. Okay? But that means that you're living an extremely, very docile existence, having to like live in a studio apartment in the worst place in town, and rationing your food, and you can do all sorts of stuff to make it happen. Okay? You can. But bring it back to what I'm saying. If I tell you the end of my goal, it sounds unrealistic. Naturally it does, because you're looking at the end result of something without the work behind it. Houses don't get built by themselves. It starts with a single nail. Actually starts with the foundation. But anyway. And then, but by breaking my plan up, I have a way to get to there. So I've been thinking the last 6 weeks, as far as I know what my goal is, how I can truly be free, how I can truly be in that water with shark. But in this scenario, having those free thoughts, I feel like the best way that I can start to think all these adventures that I really yearn for, that I really want, and that I am limited by these circumstances of having a day job, which I'm thankful for. I have a work ethic and everything, but it doesn't change the fact that myself personally, I have many adventures that I want to go on, many things that I want to do, places that I want to see and stuff like that. And I'm really, really curious to see how I will evolve in my thoughts. And here it is. Here's the goal. Once I have millions of dollars. It's sort of a weird thing to say millions of dollars. Okay. And I have made a plan, and I figured the best way to really live, and it's not really because I'm a humble guy. I am. I don't need anything. I don't want anything. But I designed a plan, and one of the things that I said previously in a prior episode was basically, if I give out my plan and everybody does it, then I'm going to have to re-strategize and change my plan accordingly. So I'm not going to say what the plan is, but I found a way, a systematic way, through legally key, doing different investments and whatnot, how within a 2-year period I could have millions of dollars. I'm sure you'd be very interested to learn. And I'm not being weird when I'm saying this, because anybody can say anything. It's true. The thing is, I've already made a plan. And it actually has 100 steps. And I'm on step 2. Which means it's already working. And I may have to restructure and re-strategize a little bit. But so far my plan is working. And I don't care about money. I really don't. I'm not interested in owning everything and doing this and doing that. I'm interested in exploring my thoughts, being truly free. Having complete freedom, beginning with my thoughts. And I believe the only way I can have that complete freedom in my thoughts is to be in a circumstance where I'm not tied down to the daily schedule of working and having a job. That doesn't mean be rushed to be unemployed. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to be able to maintain my being, however, advance past it. How to continue to own a house and pay for my house and to make money and stuff like that. And get all these things. I feel like the only way that I can actually explore my thoughts is to have millions of dollars. And my biggest ambition is just to explore my thoughts. I truly believe, another perfect example, it is much easier for me to be my whole goal is being a professional comedian. It's just who I am. Okay? Amongst other things, practitioner of jiu-jitsu, again, warrior, amongst other things. And again, I'm not just saying these things about myself. I'm a soldier. It's not a street term. I'm not a gangster, okay? I'm a veteran, but I'm a soldier always. Took an oath. So, I'm disciplined, and that's how I live by, But anyway, so what I was saying is that, I truly believe it is much easier. And if I asked a professional comedian that was already successful and on television and whatever, stuff like that, I guarantee you that they could agree with me. I guarantee you, and here it is. It is easier to be a multimillionaire, and it could happen faster than you could be a successful comedian or actor or actress, whatever the case. And here's the reason why. With being a successful comedian, people have to know me. In order for people to know me, I have to, and here's, like I said, strategizing, not getting the plan, but just working in reverse from the goal to what has happened before that, all the way up into the first step. That's how my thoughts work. They work in reverse. And anyway. So my point is this. The only way I can be a successful comedian is that people know me. Best way for people to know me is to do more shows. Best way to do more shows is I have to be booked. What comes before getting booked? Kind of getting known, doing more shows. But it all funnels to being well known. Now, from what I've heard, it takes most comedians, even with social media, and the drowning and overpopulation of there being podcasts and YouTube shows and stuff like that, blah, blah, whatever, to rise above the top and even get noticed, because there's too many out now. If you do one episode of a podcast or some YouTube show or something like that, you're going to have a channel. And even if you don't ever do it again, your one is going to make this right here, for example, harder to find. Because it's like an email. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't ever leave. It just stays. It just remains. You know what I mean? So it makes it harder to find. But anyway, the way to get known, to be successful as a comedian and stuff like that, actress, actor, whatever you name it, something it has to do with, art, music, you name it, is you have to be well known. Best way to be well known is to do the most amount of shows. Best way to do the most amount of shows is to have the most amount of hours free. Best way to have most amount of hours free is to not have a job. Best way to not have a job and still make money is through different structures of legal financial investments. And that brings me to my plan. So my plan is this, without getting into the details of the how, just saying the end point. I will be a multi-millionaire within 2 years. I don't have much money to begin with, but through the math that I've done, and I'm all right. I'm pretty good at math. If I just do something in a certain way up until my goal, it's kind of like I said, I'm just following one step at a time. That will be the way that I get to my reality, to free my thoughts. Once I'm a multimillionaire, I'll be able to do more shows. I continue to make more money even past that point, just continue to on and on and on and on. And then from going on adventures, going to Bali and Bangkok and New York, Vegas, whatever, you name it, going to all these places, I'll have more stories. I'll have more original material. Okay. And I'll have more experiences that are diverse from everybody else. So when I'm on stage and I'm communicating information, I'm telling about all these crazy, funny stories, right? It all started with an idea, which was an end goal. And that end goal had to have a plan. And that plan had to be broken into steps. And I'm already on step 2. So that's why this is called Trapped, step 2. It's kind of cryptic. You might not have made it all the way, but if you did, that's a reason why. So anyway, with that being mentioned, I hope everybody has a beautiful day. I'm Benja Welldone. Check me out. I got a show, comedy show up in this place called Canyon Lake. It's basically near Austin, Texas. I think there should be maybe like 800 people there or something like that. Maybe like 1,000. And then I got it's still a really big show, but it's not an outdoor event. It's with less people. It might be a few hundred in Arlington. I'll be doing both shows. And it's actually one of my goals. One of my goals was to actually, last year, Corona, was to feature for a headliner comedian. The headliner comedian is this guy that I know from Memphis. Really, really great guy. Very wise. Very, very wise. And I do learn a lot from him, comedy stuff. So anyway, but he'll be doing about like 45 minutes or an hour or something, and I'll be doing like 20 minutes. So, but yeah, making another goal come true. One more step. So with that being mentioned, thank you for your patience. It's easy to say things, you just say them. But if you want to do them, bring your thoughts into reality by making a plan first. Okay? Make a plan. So, all right, I'm Benja Welldone. I love you all. Have a beautiful day. Check me out. Peace.